Welcome to Training 24, Evaluation Rubrics. A rubric is simply a way to measure or to quantify data that you are collecting. And so what we want to do in the outcome of this training is to help our staff understand how to accurately measure behaviors and to get our staff thinking about measuring behaviors rather than intent. Remember, intent is not a measurable thing. Behaviors are what we measure. So to do that, we begin with a tool called levels of use. And levels of use simply goes on a scale of 0 to 6, and it measures the distance your staff or your agency has grown in using a new tool or a new innovation. Look at the center here, sustaining innovation or sustaining something new. Research says that 75% or more of persons in your agency doing the changed practices must be at the routine use or higher for that change to have a sustained impact. What that means is we've got to get people to the point in when we introduce a new tool or a new innovation or a new way of doing something, such as evidence-based, that they have to be doing it at the level of 4A, routine, if that is going to be sustained throughout the agency or the organization. So levels of use is a tool that measures how well your agency is adopting new practices. And how you lead, direct, or coach becomes much more effective when you've identified where you are in a current level of use. So it would be good here to take your staff through some of the newer things you're introducing to them and have them tell you and identify and evaluate where they are in the levels of use. This will greatly help them understand how to move through the process and how to get better at sustaining the new innovations that you're introducing. So remember, we start at 0 with non-use. We go to orientation, preparation, mechanical, routine, refinement, integration, and finally renewal, where we're exploring more ways and new ways to implement the innovation. So levels of use is a powerful tool. I would encourage you to do more research on the levels of use process, and I'll be glad to talk to you some about that if you would like. The second part of the evaluation rubric is to actually put a scale together. Now, this type of rubric is effective in measuring behaviors. You need to identify the behavior and determine a high and low anchor point. The median anchor point is not the critical points. The high and the low is what we're trying to identify. So here's the behavior. Use of evidence-based practices. The ideal, the staff is committed to evidence-based and uses it in their daily work. So when you walk through those 8 evidence-based practices and you talked with your staff about how they're actually impacting their daily work, they should have been able to tell you this is working really well and this is how we're using it every day. Look at the low anchor, unacceptable. The staff is unclear or has yet been trained in evidence-based practice. Now we've got our high and our low anchor. So the median, the middle part of the scale is the staff accepts a few but is resistant to change. That's acceptable. But what we're trying to do is move people from unacceptable to acceptable to ideal. Now notice the quantified value at the bottom. You could use a 1 to 3 scale here, 1, 2, and 3. I like a 5 scale because there are some times when the unacceptable is marginal and there's sometimes when the ideal is marginal. And you need to be able to walk through that. If you set up this rubric and measured behaviors throughout your staff or your agency, you could actually quantify and come up with a numerical value that would help you to measure your behaviors more effectively. So here's a rubric building exercise you can use with your staff. Pick something that you are trying to measure in your agency. Define the behavior, then define the ideal, which is your high anchor point, define the low anchor point, the unacceptable, and then you'll find the middle ground and the acceptable in between. And this is a great practice. I would go through and look at case plans. What's acceptable? IRAS, how long should an IRAS take? What's the ideal? What's the unacceptable? You can walk through this on all the behaviors of your agency and come up with some really good measures. So that's the point with evaluation rubrics and levels of use.